building across the street is where all of our residents eat.
Mm-hmm.
And there's an after-school room there. So this shelter was started off just in a dining room, and it was just because people didn't want to see the women and children sleeping on the street anymore. And so then in 1989 we became a real shelter, homeless shelter.
Mm-hmm.
And we got funding from the city, which means when you get funding from the city or from HUD, the other, government, federal funds, you have to play by the rules. It's not your own, and just do it the way you want to do it. And so there's guidelines that we have, and they're good for us. So when someone is homeless, they have to go to a city office and get a slip, and then they come to us with this slip. So we don't just take people,
so you just
always have a slip. And so we have several different programs. We have such huge buildings that we have the capacity to serve all types of homeless people, where some shelters maybe specialize in something, but they can't accept the whole family, and so sometimes kids get separated from their parents, but we don't do that. So we have families, so we have single moms with children, but we also can take in husband and wives, or boyfriend, girlfriend, or grandpa and granddaughter and great-grandchildren. We can take in all types of families. We have about 360 residents. We have a single men's shelter, we have a single women's shelter, and then we have our family shelters. So across the street is women with children, and over here we have separate rooms, so it's more privacy. So then over here we can take in the families that have a boyfriend or a husband or an older teenager, so that there's more privacy. We have an after-school program for our children during the year, and every family is given a caseworker who immediately tries to help them get their kids in school and get them benefits like food stamps, and make sure they have Medicare or Medicaid, and also jobs, trying to help find jobs, trying to find housing. We immediately put them on a housing list that Chicago has, where you get entered into a database, and it immediately starts trying to help the person find housing. And so sometimes it's in Chicago, sometimes it's outside of Chicago. It's sad when people have lived here so long and the only available affordable housing a lot of times is outside of Chicago. Peoria, Joliet, far away from where people. Well, the government is trying to create programs that help create more permanent housing. So they really want homelessness not to exist, right? And so they're doing everything they can to try to figure out ways to create more permanent housing for people who can't afford a lot. And so they make special funding programs, like right now there's a program that helps people who are chronically homeless. That means you've been homeless for a long period of time and you are debilitated in some way of being able to find a job. And so there's a chronic homeless program now that helps people get paid to live in permanent housing. So they're not on the street. And maybe they have mental issues or health issues that make them not be able to have jobs. So, the government also helps in the schools. So the children always have an advocate. CPS, Chicago Public Schools, has a division that helps homeless children in the public school with making sure they have their needs met, their backpacks and school supplies and stuff like that. Well, a lot of times we just, we try to take it day by day when they get here and see if they need to go to the hospital. One time, maybe there was a lady who had cancer and she had a sister who could take care of the children. Sometimes it's out of our control. If someone is dying or sick and they have children and they have no one to watch them, it becomes something that we aren't in control of because we can't watch their children. We're not legally allowed to take people's children and watch them. That's illegal. So that would be a decision above us. That would be like the Department of Human Services would probably figure out what to do with the children.
Okay.
Which is sad, but most of the time people have someone that they can sign their children over until they get better.
Okay, and do you guys have the rights to like track the children and see how they are faring or how they are treated or anything like
Oh,
that?
like after they leave?
Yeah.
That rarely happens. We aren't in the business of trying to separate families, so I don't think we have that as an issue. It rarely happens that the kids end up going somewhere else, and it's not our decision, like I said. So we can try to see how they're doing, but that would be a different department. That would be like the Department of Human Services would probably be the ones that are tracking the children. Sometimes families live here and they've lived here for a long time and they move and they start having a life and they get an apartment, but they'll come by and say hi and get their mail that sometimes still gets sent here, and we can keep up with them in that way.
Yeah.
Well, so what happens is someone who's homeless goes and sees the Department of Family and Social Services, the DFSS, and they say, I'm homeless. And so then they give them a homeless verification letter. And then that department calls us. They call our caseworkers and they say, do you have any available space in your shelter? And if we say yes, then they send us the family. If we say no, they go to send them to another shelter, like Salvation Army or something. So most of the time we can't always say yes. Sometimes we're completely full and you aren't legally allowed to take in more people than what you are zoned for. So when you get a business license for the shelter, you have a requirement you have to meet and you can't go beyond it or else you can get in trouble. You can come get shut down. A lot of times what we do in the winter is we go out in a van at night and we try to get as many people as we can from the lakefront who are sleeping outside. And they can legally stay in our dining room in a warming center. We are allowed to have a warming center across the street, which means they don't have to have that homeless verification letter. As long as the weather is a certain temperature, we can take in people to try to keep them safe. A lot of times people don't want to come though.
Why is that?
Some people have created a community and they want to stay outside and try to survive. It's like pride or something. But we also have been able to beg people to come and stay with us, so we don't want them to freeze. So.
Right.
My name is William.
My name is Raven Norris.
No, I don't know any unaccompanied youth.
No, I don't know any unaccompanied youth.
I don't know any, but I've seen some on the street.
Well, yes, I've seen unaccompanied youth out on the streets.
No, I have never seen any unaccompanied youth in the street.
They ended up homeless by not listening at home, or maybe got kicked out, or just giving up on stuff and just.
Maybe they became homeless because something their parents have done, or maybe they didn't get along with their parents, or something like that, or someone had died in their family that was taking care of them.
I think they ended up homeless by like not listening to their parents, or like their parents were sick and they didn't really have any money, and then they had to stay. They couldn't do anything, so they had to like stay on the streets or something.
No, I don't think there are enough resources to help them, because if they're under 18, it's going to be hard because they're not old enough to find a shelter for themselves.
If there's a lot of resources, then they wouldn't be on the street.
I don't really think there's enough resource to help them, because I see a lot, and I like ask them, like sometimes I like see them on the streets, and like sometimes I like ask them about like where you gonna go, and then they can't go anywhere or something.
To prevent homelessness for teens, I could like help volunteer and like petition to get them housing and stuff.
I could prevent it by building more shelters that will help teens for under 18 and getting them back at home.
Great, thank you. Okay, thank you.